The views on a Breath of Fresh Air podcast reflects the parties involved, and we encourage you all to use it as a conversational tool that will lead to personal studies of your own.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Welcome to a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. Here with your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz Gay. As a young person, Christianity can be so foggy, like smoke in the mirrors and so unclear. But we're here to bring you a breath of fresh air. Solomon, ask, what shall I give you?
God, you have shown great and steadfast love to your servant David, my father, because he walked before you in faithfulness, in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart towards you. And you have kept for him this great and steadfast love, and have given him a son to sit on his throne today. And now, O Lord my God, you have made me king in place of my father, although I am but a little child. I do not know how to go in or come out, and I am in the midst of a great people, your people, whom you have chosen, too many to be numbered or counted from multitude. Please, give me an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this great people?
Your words please me. Because you have asked this thing, and have not asked for a long life for yourself, nor have you asked riches for yourself, nor have you asked the life of your enemies, but you have asked for yourself understanding to discern justice. Behold, I have done according to your words. See, I have given you a wise and understanding heart, so that there has not been anyone like you before, nor shall any like you arise after you. And also, I have given you what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that there shall not be anyone like you among the kings all of your days. So if you walk in my ways to keep my statutes and my commandments, as your father David walked, I will lengthen your days. If you were able to make one of your deepest desires come true, what would it be? Would you solve your finances? Would you solve world peace? Would you end world hunger? I mean, the options are limitless, but you only have one choice. Solomon, early in his reign, was faced with a similar situation, and his choice may even surprise you. This week we are diving into 1 Kings chapter 3 and discussing Solomon's choice. As always, be blessed and enjoy. All right, welcome back to another episode of a Breath of Fresh Air podcast.
My name is Nakhaz Gay.
My name is Earl Roberts, and we form a Breath of Fresh Air podcast.
Yep.
The two parts of the host. Hopefully everyone enjoyed, well, at this point, Thanksgiving was like 2 weeks ago, but hopefully everyone enjoyed it. We still have a very Thanksgiving-ish background here. Yeah, man. Hopefully everyone's getting ready to end the year off strong or make it to the end of the year or however you want to phrase it. But I mean, to me, this is like a perfect time to start reflecting on how good God has been to us throughout this year and how much things we've probably been through or accomplished, and God has pulled us through where we didn't see how we were going to make it certain places. But man, God's definitely been good. God's definitely been good. And I feel like year end is a perfect time to reflect on his goodness. Not saying that you shouldn't do it often, but definitely during the year end. I don't know if people have been keeping up with their prayer journals or prayer answered lists, but it's a good time to start going back through and even making notes and saying, yo, yeah, God did bring me through this and God did provide this, and just a good point of reflection. Yeah, man, how your week been?
My week been, I don't know, it's been kind of up and down. It's pretty, stuff started to really pick up at work, but I do know that I wasn't as productive as I should have been, so I kind of, some of this was self-inflicted, honestly. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was in...
Sorry, I try to adjust this light that has to look like my head's being squished, but we'll just have to bear with it.
Yeah. I remember when I was in college, I used to move furniture for people, like with a moving company. And one of my first jobs, it was this guy, and he gave all of us T-shirts that said that it had the number 67 on it. Mm-hmm. And in the 67, it had the books of the Bible on it. And he told me, well, he told us, he said his ministry is called 67 or 67th or something like that. And he was saying, imagine when you get to heaven and you meet Paul, or let me see a better example, you meet Matthew, or no, Jonah wouldn't be. Anyway, you meet these people and they tell you about their life, as it was depicted in the books of the Bible. Like, let's say Joshua, for example, right? Oh, yeah. So, the way my relationship with Christ is documented in the book of Joshua, XYZ. And then they turn around and ask you, just get to know it. It's like a heavenly mixer. That's the way he presented it to us. And he say, imagine not having anything to share, And he said 66 books of the Bible, but we should be living to be the 67th book. You know what I'm saying? So like each and every one of us, like our life we should be prepared. Like the people that were documented in the Bible, I'm sure they weren't living to be written about, you know what I'm saying? But it just so happens that, especially for the righteous, they were living in a way that was an example for others. And he was saying basically that's what our life should be, and even if others don't benefit from it, if you tangibly write down the blessings and just the thoughts and just like in a spiritual journal with God, you can reflect on that. You can look back and say, you know what, I was really in a bind here and I prayed, and guess what? It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. You know what I'm saying? Or this thing really impacted me more than I wanted it to, but now it's over. You know what I'm saying? Or if you're still in the midst of your storm, you can document it so that you can understand, so that when you are done, you can have a full-length testimony, to provide. And what you were saying just kind of reminded me that this year I've been kind of in and out with my my journal, my prayers answered journal, but I'm sure if I look at them now, I'd be pretty humble to say, God has been good, even though every week or every month has not been the same. You might get a car, and you're thankful for that, but then next month, everything just normal, and you can kind of forget the things that God has done to make you feel special, because it's not constant. You might get it in a moment where you feel a little mundane in your spiritual life. When you look back on it, you can quantify, you know what? I being ungrateful because I cannot honestly say that the Lord has done nothing for me. The Lord has supplied all my needs. So yeah, that's my little thought.
And that's completely valid, man, because do you think Ruth and Boaz ever imagined that they would be memorialized forever in the Bible?
I don't think so, because it's like Boaz wasn't even really a minister for it. Like his life was the ministry, but he wasn't walking, as it's depicted in the book of Ruth. But he wasn't walking around saying, "Yeah, you a Moabite? Yeah, let me tell you about our Lord and Savior Yahweh." You know what I'm saying? Like he was living it.
That's a fact, and the reason I even bring that up because, again, to your point, our stories can be the next one. And here's the thing too, some people, you would the Christ in you would be the only Jesus they ever meet. Mm-hmm. So what does your life, what does your story, what does your conversation, what does that convey to them? Do they want to get to know what brings you joy? Do they want to get to know the God that brought you through your trials and your tribulation? Do they get a message of hope? Do they get a message of encouragement? Or is the only thing they're getting, I don't know, gossip or feeling discouraged or feeling like there is no hope. And I mean, we as Christians, we have a great message. We definitely have a great message. We definitely have a great hope. And it's like, how often do we share it? You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, I know you're probably even better than this than I am, but like trying to bring up God more like everyday conversation. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I'm not like horrible at it, but I'm not great at it either. It's definitely something I could improve on in the upcoming year. But bro, it's just a thought. You know what I'm saying? Go for it.
No, but the past 2 weeks, I've really been thinking about explaining Christianity to people who do not understand it, bro. Everyone I know is from the western part of the world. Everyone I know was more than likely born and raised Christian, except for the very few people I know that was born and raised Rastafarian and Muslim. And I know more people who born Rastas than were born Muslim. The vast majority of people I know were born Christian. And so when I speak, I cut corners because y'all already understand who Jesus is. Now, right now, I'm just providing context, you know, but I've been placed in a position to be around people that just don't know about Christianity. You know what I'm saying? They don't know about Judaism, none of that. And now I'm like, how do I answer questions if they ever come about? So I'm mentally prepared for that. But it really showed me a big weakness in my knowledge of the Bible. I want to say it's 2 Peter, man. I can't remember, but it's a text that goes to be always ready to provide evidence for your faith or something about OMG. I'm so sorry that I don't know the text right off the bat. If my wife was there, she'd be able to riddle it off. But the sentiment is basically saying, you know, be always prepared to explain the reason for your faith, you know. And that's something that I feel like all of us, you know, especially as ambassadors for Christ, we should take that text into serious consideration and, you know, work on now with the leadership of the Holy Spirit.
I think what I found was 1 Peter 3:15, just to back up your point. But yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful right there. And it's so interesting because you'd read like the writings of Paul, Peter to a certain extent, in the New Testament, right? And we see, you know, everyone know Paul went on like 3 missionary journeys to like people who just weren't Christians at all. You know what I'm saying? Like going to Greece, going to different parts of Rome, going to these different churches like Corinth and all these places. These were like different like Greek cities. You know what I'm saying? And Paul like singing statues to the unknown God and was like, oh yeah, let me tell you all about this God, like telling you about something you completely don't know. Like, so it's super interesting. It's super like is definitely something to ponder and something to think about. But yeah, that's a thought. Go forth and think.
Yeah, for real. Now we got to get to the man of the hour, the man that was described to be similar to Samson in that he had something supernatural, a gift from God that no one else had, you know. Very interesting. I love stories like this. It actually piqued the child in me. Like I remember as a child, and you read all of these quote unquote superhero-like things that people did through God, you know, that the Lord allowed them to do. Mm-hmm. And this was definitely one of the more notable ones, King Solomon.
So yeah, this week we're in 1 Kings chapter 3. This whole like 1 Kings chapter 3 is I mean, if you grew up in church or something, like this is like a pretty normal like Sabbath school story. Like if you've watched 3ABN or TBN, this has been a cartoon in different iterations many a time. So it's a pretty familiar story in the Christian realm. It ain't like Dinah and the Shechemites and some of those hidden gems that you don't know about.
That is true. And I would be honest with you. I think without reading the Bible before reading the Bible the past 12 months, I don't think I can name any other story about Solomon that is outside of First Kings chapter 3. I think that's like the only thing I know about Solomon. Like
really interesting. If you know King Solomon, like you pretty much know this, like what's described in this, like, in both parts of this one chapter.
Yes.
Like this is what Solomon is known for. Like this is Solomon's
like his
story.
Two most notable things are in this chapter.
Exactly. So in 1 Kings chapter 3, in verse 1, reading from the New King James Version, now Solomon made a treaty with the Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Pause. I didn't even make it halfway through the sentence, right? Right? But why do they always say Pharaoh, king of Egypt? Like Pharaoh was his name. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, bro, just say Pharaoh. We all not know Pharaoh's king of Egypt, or just say king of Egypt because we know the king of Egypt is Pharaoh.
See, but the funny thing about it is they don't even always say Pharaoh, king. I think they say Pharaoh a lot of times, but to your point, they don't call the Pharaoh's name. You know what I'm saying? And I have a personal belief about that. And obviously we didn't go over this off board. And I don't know, I could be very wrong, but it's like, you know, in the Old Testament, we have types and anti-types. And we have things that happen in the Old Testament, and then when we see it in the New Testament, or we see it during the life of Jesus, the opposite thing happens, you know, because Jesus fulfills or Jesus comes to bring the Jesus actually is the representation of how things should have went, you know. So basically, when we think of Egypt, we think of bondage, we think of idolatry. That's set up very early in the Bible narrative, right? From Genesis, we see Egypt. They did God. We saw plagues in Egypt from Abraham time. You know what I mean? And then we obviously saw that happening with Moses and stuff like that. But the imprint that Egypt had left on the Israelites was something that was so deep that I could see the authors of the Bible not wanting to give any shine to these people, you know. And then at the same time, you could argue, okay, so what about Nebuchadnezzar? But we did know that Nebuchadnezzar ended up giving his life to God at the end of his reign. You know what I'm saying? But then you have so many kings or people that were villains of God in the Bible. But it seems like early on, Egypt and what they represent, they were big obstructions to, you know, the people of Israel, to the point where it's like, yeah, we ain't mentioning this person's name.
I mean, that's a fact. That's a fact. That's a good, I mean, probably reason why. But I was like, yo, come on.
It can be any reason. I just think of it like that, because a lot of times I see the Bible don't mention certain stuff. And I'm like, bro, it's kind of killing me that y'all don't mention this person named them. Because truthfully, you know, you have to dig hard. I can just be honest with you. You got to dig hard to fact check the historical events of the Bible. Because a lot of times the Bible is the only place that we can find that mentions this thing. You know what I'm saying? Not with this situation, because I believe this would be one of the more easy things to verify. But it's like, man, if we had a name for Pharaoh, we could kind of put a timeline on these things, you know. But you know, God in His wisdom, it could be a coincidence that they just happened not to mention it, or back in the day, pharaohs probably didn't want their name written by other people. Who knows?
Well, then part of it might just be like the test of faith. Like, do you believe?
Yeah, and why it matter for it? You know what I mean?
Like, the bottom line, it don't really matter.
See, because this ain't even about Pharaoh, this is about his daughter, bro, but we don't even get her name. You know what I mean? So why would we give you Pharaoh's name if I ain't even giving you his daughter name? Like,
Box. So off the tangent. And so now
I got something I'll tell you, bro.
Get it off your chest, man.
Because like sometimes I wonder, as Christians, how much is overstepping. So, you know, it's some people, you know, especially some Christian YouTubers, when they get on the extreme side, they'll tell you, like, if you see somebody who follow different religious, like they might be doing witchcraft and dabbling this and that, you know, and they'd say that, come from around them, you know, don't mingle with them, don't eat with them, don't accept nothing from them, right? They barely ever give you the why, you know. But I could see times in the Bible where Pharaoh Pharaoh, excuse me, I don't have no evidence to support that this Pharaoh wasn't worshiping idols, you know what I'm saying? Wasn't seen of as a deity, wasn't seen of as a pagan, you know what I'm saying? I don't see no evidence of that, but Solomon sure is making arrangement with this guy and marrying his daughter like a normal, you know what I mean? And so like, my thing is like, I feel like, obviously we are God's children, you know? By beholding you, you can become change. I do believe that to be true, but we are not to be a hermit at the same time too. That don't mean just because somebody worship different, you can't go over to their house for dinner. You know what I mean? You can't hang out with them and chill. You know, this ain't the land of Canaan. Like, you feel me? But anyway, I just feel like some things in the Bible, like you can see the evidence of how even righteous people interact with other people, and it's not to be isolated from them.
I mean, when you think about it too, like who did Jesus hang out with? Predominantly
tax collectors, sinners.
The sinners. I mean, we all are sinners, right? But he hung out with like the downtrodden society, who people would consider like the utmost sinners.
Yeah, but guess what? That's like within the realm of Jews and Jerusalem and stuff like that, right? So when Jesus, notice, he hang around tax collectors and the Pharisees freak out, right? But when he go on to the Samaritans, even his disciples was kind of like, I mean, even the Samaritans was kind of like, why you here? Why you here? You feel me? But yeah, no, I get you, bro. I get you for sure.
All right, let's see if we can make it past verse 2.
Yeah, I can shut up. we can go.
So, and he married Pharaoh's daughter, and he brought her to the city of David until he had finished building his own house and the house of the Lord and the wall all around Jerusalem. So we see like these a couple, like 3 different building projects that Solomon had on his agenda that he had not completed yet. And we also see he married a foreigner and he brought her back to Jerusalem. Meanwhile, the people sacrificed at the high places because there was no house built for the name of the Lord until those days. And Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of his father David, except that he sacrificed and burned incense at the high places. And that is, okay, so it's a couple of things. We already kind of addressed the daughter part of it, partially, but it's like, just for conversation's sake, you go back in Deuteronomy, and what was the actual verbiage? Were they not supposed?
Deuteronomy 17, right? When we talking about the king.
Yeah, I think
you talking about the charge to the king, like how the king should be.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. I think that's Deuteronomy 17. But and we can continue with the conversation
because it's that one, and then it's like, are they allowed to marry foreigners? So it's 2 different Deuteronomy. I don't even know you say it, 2 different parts of Deuteronomy that we gotta like kind of establish. And the only reason why, because we already see, like, because we know David married some foreigners too, right?
Right.
But now we also know that, okay, Solomon marrying a different royalty. And now, again, in ancient times, and even up to modern recent times, right? Go back a couple hundred years ago, the significance of marrying royal houses marrying each other is to try to like quell wars. Like, you don't want to go to war against your cousin, so all right, we could try to solve it diplomatically or something.
Right.
This is a method of keeping peace. Because go for it.
No, I didn't want to change the subject yet because I have Deuteronomy 17 verse 15.
No, go for it.
Okay, so thou shalt, this is from the King James Version, thou shalt in any wise.
You start with thou shalt.
Real talk. Thou shalt in any wise set him over thee, whom the Lord thy God shall choose. Basically talking about the king, right? One from among thy brethren shalt thou set king over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother. So it has to be an Israelite who's ruling Israel. I think that's only fair. But he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he should multiply horses. For as much as the Lord had said to you, he shall henceforth return no way. So basically, you can't cause these people to go back to live in Egypt. Neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart turn not away. Neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver or gold. So basically, they're saying this person can't be vain. He can't be trying to buy a bunch of horses and silver and gold. And obviously, and also, he shouldn't have a bunch of wives because this will turn his heart away. This is in writing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it shall be when he sitteth upon the throne of his kingdom that he shall write him a copy of this law in a book out of that which is before the priests, the Levites. And it shall be with him, and he shall read thereon all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, to keep all the words of his laws and his statutes, etc. So that's the only charge to the king that I recall in Deuteronomy. But Deuteronomy is a big book, and it is very likely that there are other things in there, but I didn't see where it was saying specifically that the king should not marry another, you know.
Because I could be wrong, because I thought it was just also like a general, like the Israelites were not to intermarry with the foreign pagan nations.
Right, that's my understanding too. Oh man, is
that Leviticus? Either way, we should have probably had this up before time.
Right.
But and so is the next thing to point out too, right? So like if you go later down in Kings, like when we get to like chapter 11.
Mm-hmm.
So in chapter 11, we see Solomon reigned for 40 years, and in chapter 14, we see that his son came to the throne when he was 41.
Mm.
So we could really see like Solomon already, before he even started reigning, technically his son looks like he already had a kid.
Okay.
Which would also imply that he was probably already married, which would also imply this might even be his second wife already.
Which would also imply that he wasn't like very young.
Like he was, yeah, which is going to be an important point when we get to a little later in the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
But the next reason why this is so important, because if anyone knows the full story of Solomon, which even though we in Solomon now, but we know one of his major downfalls later on in life is women.
Mm-hmm.
He was like a Samson 2.0. I lied, 3.0, because David was kind of 2.0 with the whole Bathsheba thing, his own mommy.
Yeah. See, but, it's interesting the parallel now, because I start off saying that I think I mentioned Samson at the beginning of the chapter because he had a gift from God.
Yeah.
And
I just kept with the analogy.
Yeah, so that's actually pretty interesting because not only were they gifted from God, not only were they leaders of Israel, but they also they like him foreign. You know what I mean? They wanted something from out of town.
Exactly. I got one more thing to read, and this from Nehemiah 13:25, verse 27. Reading from verse 25, New King James Version again. So I contended with them and cursed them, struck some of them and pulled out their hair and made them swear to God, saying, you shall not give your daughters as wives to their sons, nor take their daughters for sons for your wives. Did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations there was no king like him, who was beloved of his God, and God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, pagan women caused even him to sin. So we then hear of all things, so then we hear of your doing all these great evil, transgressing against our God by marrying pagan women.
Oh. Yeah.
And when we get to the book of Nehemiah, we can see Nehemiah he was ready for all the smoke.
Yeah, and it was necessary because it's like it's only so much times we can get exiled and have to deal with these consequences without changing before you gotta stand up and say, hey, hold on now, bro. We just get back here. You know what I mean? And y'all trying to throw it away. But even to further your point, Deuteronomy 7, 1-4, but just the ESV, just really quickly, you shall not, it's basically saying when you get into the land of the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, that
all the ites.
Right, all ites. You shall not intermarry with them, giving your daughters to their sons or taking their daughters for your sons, for they would turn away your sons from following me to serve other gods. Then the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you, and he will destroy you quickly. That was Deuteronomy chapter 7, 1-4.
Mm.
Yes. Oh, you shall make no covenant with them and show no mercy. Okay, so that's why I kind of wanted to be specific because in the book of Deuteronomy, they still about to enter the Canaanite land, right? So it's stuff they have to do in the introduction to this new land. But now Solomon, who was years and years and years after they had already been established in the land, the question I would have posed is, the intermarrying thing, was this only because at the time they were supposed to purge the land, and now that everything is done, what difference? And also his wife wasn't a Canaanite at all. You know what I'm saying? She was an Egyptian.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't trying to be semantic person, because I understand the overall sentiment. But sometimes I need to be spoon-fed. Like sometimes I want the Bible to say he married her as the king, knowing that he should not have. You know what I mean? But now it leads us to speculate, and we can see in Nehemiah where he gives the clarity after the fact. So we understand that this was problematic to begin with, but it was also diplomatic on Solomon's part. But very interesting.
So much interwoven. And then the second thing, so like in verse 3, right? It made me laugh the first time I read this, and I almost felt like something was wrong. It was like Solomon loved the Lord, walking in all the statutes of his father David, except that he sacrificed. And like when you like the minute, like anytime the word "except" is used, you always feel like dun dun dun.
Yeah, he only had one flaw, and he gone up to the high places to sacrifice.
What do you think was like the significance behind that?
Bro, I don't know, bro. And I wish I had physically read, because when I was reading, I was basically listening.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, all right. So verse 4, now the king went to Gibeah to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings. So this is something that you mentioned earlier, and I thought this was interesting too when I listened to it. It's like, you go into the high places, right? But this ain't even in Jerusalem, though. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta leave. You gotta go to a whole different other town, even to sacrifice. You feel me?
Yeah, and that's a fact. And it's like, when we look at it now, right? And it's something that before the pod was telling Kazi, like I even forgot existed, and my ignorance. But we know David brought the ark back to Jerusalem, right? But when you look back at it, the tabernacle was still a thing. So, I mean, and then when you think about it, it makes sense. Like when we go back to Exodus and we see the whole description of when the tabernacle was supposed to be created, all the different, furnishings of the tabernacle. If only the ark in Jerusalem, where the table of showbread, where the candlestick thing, where the other, look at me, I gonna show my where are the furnishings of the tabernacle, right? But then we remember when David was on the run. Remember, he stopped to the tabernacle and eat the showbread of the tabernacle.
Mm-hmm.
So you go back and like, hold on, the tabernacle in a completely different city, but David never brought the tabernacle itself to the city of Jerusalem. And some people speculate that it's because he wanted to build a temple in Jerusalem, like the permanent dwelling place for God. So if the people already have how humans do, why you gotta build one if you already have one?
Yeah.
So David purposely left it out because he was so focused on building the temple that he never got to build. But it's just interesting. But so now, right, the sacrifices were supposed to happen in the tabernacle, but since they didn't really have like a permanent place, you have people building altars in these high places. Now, building altars in high places is more so of a pagan thing, but now the only difference is like, you guys saying we're sacrificing to God. And so I think what the Bible was trying to say, except it was like, yeah, this practice ain't really like for real, ain't really ours, but all right, you get heart almost in the right place.
Yeah, and so I wonder about that, bro, because when we understand the whole life of Solomon, we understand that, it is his just being unequally yoked, really cost him, right? And it also cost Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sacrifices, bro, and quote unquote incense and stuff like that, cool. But when you say accept, to your point, that make me feel like you're doing something that your father would not have done. And why wouldn't your father have offered sacrifices? Now, granted, this could show my ignorance too, because I'm not sure. Wasn't only the Levites to offer sacrifices? Wasn't that?
But remember, David did offer the sacrifice when people brought the ark back.
Right.
That's when he actually go for it.
And that's why I'm saying my ignorance, because I ain't sure. Because I remember, Saul, King Saul, he offered the sacrifice, but that was a no bueno. You know what
because
I mean?
because Saul didn't wait.
Yeah, because he ain't wait. But it wasn't the weight of the sacrifice. You know what I mean? Anywho, so
obedience is better than sacrifice, boy.
That's true. I can't lie. That's one of the biggest bars in the Old Testament I hear so far, bro. Obedience is better than sacrifice, bro. Wait, that is so crazy to me, bro. That's so crazy to me. Like, even in marriage, I realize it not too, bro, because it's like you could do something thinking that, I trying to do you a favor, right? And it goes south. And you can say, but hold on, Earl, the only reason why I didn't buy lunch because I thought we can go to the spot together, bro. And you come back saying, bro, but I never tell you do that. You see what I'm saying? you was trying to sacrifice something at the expense of a rule that wasn't even in place, bro. Like, why? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that just happened with me and my wife all the time. Like, hold on, but babe, I didn't do that because of you. But she's saying, bro, I never tell you do that. You see what I'm saying? So like, why? Like, you need to obey the law of you good to do what you want to do in this situation, bro. Like, you feel me? Because right now it's becoming a tiff. But anywho, so this one little hint, I ain't gonna fully indict Solomon and saying, he was offering sacrifices to idols and stuff right there, but it does not look good just based on the verbiage of Solomon,
Exactly. And anyway, 35 minutes in, let's just speed this up.
Yeah.
Let's make it to verse 4. So now the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there. For that was the great high place. Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night. And God said, what shall I give you? First of all, 1,000? That's cocky.
See, but this make me feel like
that's excessive.
This way I conflict it too, because obviously the Lord respond. So is the issue the high place, or is the issue what was being sacrificed? You know what I mean?
Man,
I don't know.
1,000? That's a lot.
He going crazy. That's a Will Chamberlain type sacrifice right there. Like, just stuffing all the starches, every line on the start sheet.
For real. So in verse 6, and Solomon said, you have shown great mercy to your servant David, my father, because he walks before you in truth, in righteousness, and in uprightness of the heart with you. You have continued this great kindness for him, and you have given him a son to sit on his throne as it is this day. Now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king instead of my father David. But I am a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in. And your servant is in the midst of your people, whom you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to be numbered or counted. Therefore, give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours? Mercy.
Yeah, now this go to show that even before he asked for wisdom, he was wise. Either that or very scared, But no matter what, it was very noble of him to say, man, I putting my duty to the people before any of my own desires, And that's one of the stories that as a child, my parents, taught me about. They say, yeah, is this king? God asked him for he could have anything in the world. And he asks for wisdom. It's funny how sometimes they put it for children. Sometimes like the way they package it for children to get. But I don't know. I think it's very noble. But all right, obviously, I don't think he was a little child. that's the point that I was trying to make earlier. Like he said, I'm a little child or I'm a child or whatever. But that might just show that he was very inexperienced. Very green, as we would say in the Bahamas. And you have a big toss on your heart, bro.
Yeah, I think it was him like trying to show his humility. It shows humility and just showing my inadequateness for this job. Because we talked about this like 2-3 episodes ago. Well, I mean, like just the age difference that we surmised between him and Adonijah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, man, I am maybe a 20-year-old. If you do the maths, something might have been like around 20, 19, perhaps. Either way, still pretty young, but we think this is supposed to be the person ruling the nation. I mean, like, let's think about it. Would you want a 20-year-old president? Would you want a 20-year-old prime minister? Some might argue yes, but at the same time, it's like, have you experienced life to a degree where you can actually fully make decisions on behalf of a country?
That's true.
And then, I mean, we just seem like we saw what Solomon really had to go through. Yeah, last episode, we talked about how through David's wisdom, he got those people executed. But at the same time, you just start in your kingdom. You have a lot to deal with, man. Like the nation is depending on you. And this is when kings were like very much involved in the running of their kingdoms. Not like the kingdoms we see today. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, are we gonna get more to it in this chapter? Like, there's a problem. The king has to be like, the king's going out to war. The king is settling disputes in the land. This king is making sure that people got food to eat. The king is making sure people got water. The king is brokering deals. Like, the king is, like, there's a lot, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of burden on him. And so he's saying like, Lord, man, you tell me I get up every day? Bro, I need to figure out how to do this job.
Right, I want to do my job. Like, that's what, bro. Like when I first get on the job and we used to have monthly meetings with my manager and thing, and they're like, bro, where you see yourself and all this and that. They're like, bro, hold on, I just want to be nice at what I do, bro. I ain't care about all that other stuff right now, bro. Because right now I feel dumb. I don't feel like I'm proficient enough. That's the only thing I can think of right now, bro. Just being better, bro. So, and then that could open doors to what's going to happen down the line. Like, I always used to struggle to answer them questions because I honestly, until I know what I'm doing or I'm comfortable and confident in my skills, I can't really be planning for this or that,
No, fuck. Solomon say, bro, what good am I if I can't even like judge between good and evil? And that just really shows how much it probably even been weighing on his heart too. Like, yo, y'all bringing me these things, these cases, these disputes. Bro, I don't know.
I don't know.
Like, oh, Solomon, my neighbor stole my sheep, but I can't verify it, but I definitely know I had 3 sheep yesterday, and he only had 10, now he has 13. Solomon's like,
rock, paper, scissors, and out or something, man. Like,
yo, figure this out, bro. Cast lots.
Right. Cast lots, the winner get the sheep.
Exactly. So, but now we see in Solomon's like, okay, yeah, I want to be a good king. And I think that's pretty noble. Like, I want to be able to be an adequate enough of my job to guide the people. Like, Lord, you thought I was worthy of this position because I had other brothers. I had a brother who literally just already tried to steal the throne from me. So clearly, I mean, like, yo, you gave me this great responsibility. Like, give me the wisdom to like see it through. I think there's something admirable about that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I agree.
I think it's something admirable about that. I remember when I was younger, I was like, bro, really the wisdom though, bro? Anything your heart desires, bro? Anything, bro? Anything?
Right. See, but this one of those paradoxes. No, I don't even gonna say that. But like how when someone say, if you could have one wish in the world, what would you wish for? And then people say, I'd wish for more wishes. Like, like that's the trick around it, eh? But wouldn't it be wise to ask for wisdom? Because if you have wisdom, it's like the possibility of you having literally anything else in the world increases. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if you wanted riches with wisdom, you could plot a plan for you all to develop this industry, or you could manage things better and maximize and just invest or however, because you have the wisdom, So I think it took wisdom in general to ask for wisdom.
No, that's a fact. I believe so too, because if your heart got to be in the right place, I feel like at this point in time.
That's true, especially as a young boy, bro. Like, if you ain't wise, no matter what he give you, you're gonna lose it. You're gonna squander it. He could have give you anything else. You squander it away because you just ain't know how to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people say the hardest part is keeping something, but not even getting it. You know, it's keeping it, the maintenance.
That's the fact.
Yeah.
That's a big fact. Like, you could get $1 million today, but can you keep it?
Could you keep that though? That's the thing.
Mercy. All right. So in verse 10, the speech pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. Then God said to him, because you have asked this thing and have not asked for long life for yourself, nor have asked for riches for yourself, nor have asked for the life of your enemies, but you have asked for yourself understanding to discern justice. Behold, I have done according to your words. See, I have given you a wise and understanding heart, so that there has not been anyone like you before you, nor shall any like you arise after you. And I have also given you what you have asked, what you have not asked, both riches and honor. So there shall not be anyone like you among all the kings all your days. So if you walk in my ways and keep my statutes and my commandments, as your father David walked, then I will lengthen your days. You still think David ain't gonna be in heaven, but
I don't think I questioned if David was gonna be in heaven.
Okay.
I was wondering, but Solomon, you see what I said? I don't have a doubt in my mind about David. You see what I'm saying? Samson, though, I think about all the time. You understand? Solomon, sometimes I think about, and obviously I don't know, God judges the heart. I don't know what the full criteria is, and I don't know these people's heart. I only can go based on the stuff was depicted in the Bible, but sometimes I really just wonder, bro, like you look at somebody, all right, so like even as kids, we like the protagonist in the Bible, it gives off the impression that every protagonist was actually the protagonist. But then when you look at God as the protagonist, sometimes the people that we thought was the protagonist, they might actually be the villain. You feel me? So like, let's say for instance, Saul was the protagonist. Or let's say people like Jeroboam. Jeroboam is it Jeroboam? I talking about the dude who did the no. The dude who did the child sacrifice in Judges, man. I can't remember what his name is.
Jephthah,
right? Jephthah was the protagonist in the Bible for a strong 10 verses, bro. Until he was not. He was the protagonist until he was not. And then you look at it like, hold on, bro. This dude might actually be the villain. You feel me? But he was the ruler of Israel. He was the judge. So, like, people like that, I wonder, bro. I wonder where, by the grace of God, I plan and I try to work towards getting to heaven. I have the helmet of salvation. I think about it all the time. You know what I mean? And so, assuming that I do make it, right? I just wonder if I can see some of the quote-unquote protagonists.
Wait, for some reason, I can just imagine him when we shaking our head, right?
right now, listen. Don't worry, when I call him, we can have a good joke with this. I can
be like, Nakhaz, what you mean?
What you mean? We can have a good joke with this when I call him.
Oh boy, but go back to Solomon, right? And like how it ended. It's just interesting, like in Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20 comes to my mind, and it goes, what? Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we could ever ask or think. According to the power that worketh in us, amen. But like Solomon asked for wisdom. And God saying, okay, that's all, that's it.
That's it.
I was expecting to do something else, but you know what? Since that's all you asked for, I can give you even more than you asked for. More than you even could have asked for, I think. I'm going to give you the riches. I'm going to give you the honor. I'm going to give you the wisdom along with it. I'm going to give you everything else that you didn't ask for. And like, that's even more than Solomon even thought he was going to get. This shows the power of God. And then God also say, hey, now if you keep walking in my ways and keep my statutes, keep my commandments, then I'll also lengthen your days. You know what I'm saying? It just shows like how great God is. You know what I'm saying? You think you're getting one blessing, and this one blessing turned into like 5 different blessings.
So I sometimes wonder about wisdom too, because like, why is this man at the time and why is this man to ever be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean he's a genius, right? So we think about people.
Well, I got a deeper level for you, but keep going.
No, go on.
No, man, I want to finish. Anyway, go for it.
Because it's one thing to be wiser than even the Elohite or whoever, whatever his name is. I can't remember, right? But when we get to like, the Einsteins and, the people like that, like the Teslas in the world, who was actually like geniuses, I don't know how wise they were. You feel me? Like, I don't know what their decision making, but when it comes to like their area of work, be it science or chemistry or, biology, whatever, they were geniuses. Like this was only could have been God who made you so like gifted in this area. I wonder if he was like a genius in that he could have done, math and, all these other things. Or was it just that his understanding and his sharpness and his cleverness, like aka wisdom, the way I define it in my mind, was just superior to every. Like, was it just that, bro? You hold a conversation with this dude, he's sharper than you at all costs. You try to deceive him. He on top of that. You know what I mean? Was it just that he just was sharp? You feel me? Or was it just like he's a genius, like he can invent stuff? I
just think it was the Holy Spirit just empowering him. I mean, I guess like a cop-out answer, right? But you see what he asked for, bro? A heart that could discern good and evil. I was like, but what you want?
Bro,
like to chop the wisdom back to like Adam and Eve, bro, before like the fall?
Yeah.
Because I was like, bro, what you mean, bro? Discern good and evil, bro? Like, wait, what you really asking for right now, bro?
I take that as him saying, bro, like when I'm in a situation or an opportunity presents itself, I could see it for what it is. Because sometimes people are so deceptive, but he's seeing straight through that deception. You know what I mean? That's how I take it. But he might have he might have pre-knowledge of good and evil, understanding. Yeah, what you saying?
No, go for that. This man got. Anyway, whatever he had was inspired by God, and to your point, it is a question like, what do you define as wisdom? What do you define as smartness? Because like some people don't define. Some people just don't like what's the difference? Like,
I had a bachelor in my school, bro, to do with 4.0 everything, but he was an airhead, bro. But dog, I like, wow, bro. Like, but like,
go up and give me and say dumb. Bro, come on too fast for me.
Yeah, true. But my thing is, he lacked what we call common sense. You understand what I'm saying? In a lot of ways, like he's gullible. You know what I mean? He didn't make sound decisions, and it was the biggest conundrum because it's like, bro, but hold on, bro. If we need you to do anything, if we need you to teach us anything that's written in a book, you could break that down for us, but you can't really, I guess, critically think on a day-to-day. I know.
It's funny how that is break down.
Yeah.
But in verse 15, then Solomon awoke, and indeed it had been a dream. I can't remember if the cartoons that show him actually dreaming though.
I don't think so.
Because when I read this week, I was like, what you mean it was a dream? I thought Solomon was on the balcony talking to God.
Right, but then when you read the Bible, bro, and you really like kind of pay attention, God wasn't really just pulling up on people for real. Like, a lot of times it was in a dream. Most times it's in a dream. That's why when Saul was down bad, because God didn't talk to him by prophet or dream or Urim. But when he talked to the prophet, he's still coming to the prophet in a dream. You know what I mean? So,
Fox. And continuing verse 15, and then Solomon came to Jerusalem after his dream and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord and offered up burnt sacrifices, burnt offerings, offered peace offerings, and made a feast for all of his servants. So what's so interesting too, right? So we see this man went all the way to Gibeon to sacrifice in the high place on the altar. After this dream, now he get into the ark and say, no, right, I can just do this like in city. I'm like, Solomon, this guy I'm looking at that accept a little bit now, Solomon.
Yeah. But maybe it's like he taking shortcuts and how he used to offer sacrifice. You know what I mean? Like I could have do the real one. You feel me? I could have gone before the ark. But nah, I can just go to this high place for real. I know.
All right. So now in verse 16. Now 2 women who were harlots in the New King James Version came to the king and stood before him. And one woman said, "Oh, my lord, this woman and I dwell in the same house, and I gave birth while she was in the house. Then it happened the 3rd day after I had given birth that this woman also gave birth. And we were together. No one was with us in the house, except the 2 of us in the house. And this woman's son died in the night because she lay on him." So
First night.
tragic, right?
Bro.
So she arose in the middle of the night and took my son from my side. Clearly, you're a very hard sleeper. While your maidservant slept, and laid him in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom. Very, very hard sleeper. Now, in verse 21, and when I arose in the morning to nurse my son, there he was dead. But when I had examined him in the morning, indeed, he was not my son whom I had born. Then the other woman said, "No, but the living son is my son, the dead one is your son." The first woman said, "No, the dead one is your son, and the living one is my son." Thus they spoke before the king.
But this is a sick story when you really, really think about it, you know, bro.
I could just see your face like, what's happening here?
But I really put myself in this situation, right? So imagine, right? You had a baby. You wake up and the baby is dead. You obviously, right? You obviously distraught, right? Like to me, I would be distraught to the point where I'm weak. You know what I mean? And
I don't even want to think about losing a kid.
And I probably loud and crying and sobbing, right? But this lady,
no,
she came up with a plan.
Immediately,
I can take your child, swap it with mine, possibly switch the clothes. You see what I said? If the babies were clothed at the time. Or maybe they just had on a diaper and call it a day.
They had them wraps. You know, this is way back in the day.
Right. So I possibly wrapping it in the wrap that you had.
Swaddling cloths.
I swaddling mine in your cloth. And now I putting the baby under my bosom and I going to sleep like it's normal, bro.
Like completely normal.
But yeah, I know, bro. That's wild to me, bro. Nah, the Bible don't say she's gone back to sleep, right? But I just like, bro.
Well, it just say, bro, she said she laid him in her bosom. I laid the dead child in my bosom. And this girl, she going back to sleep, bro.
Bro, but
this in the morning.
Right, but just the thing, though. The next day, you ain't even like, you nervous? You arguing? No, that's your child. You know what I mean? Like, you ain't just like you murder a bit. Not really murder, but you kill a baby. Like, you ain't.
And steal one.
You kill and steal with a remorse, bro. Like,
mercy.
Wow.
But I just imagine being King Solomon, like, bro, what?
And she probably going to God saying, "In no way they can find out." You know what I mean? Like, how could you prove?
Like, and at the same time, too, I'd be like, bro, what are the chances? Only y'all 2 in this house?
Right.
Only y'all 2 had babies?
Right.
No one else is helping y'all out?
3 days apart. And you just so happened to sleep. You was in a sleep coma that night.
What, were you drunk? Like,
hey, unless you had sleep in 2 different parts of the house, and she had an episode on the other side, so you were really hear her. You know what I mean? Like, how you do that, bro? How she even pull that off is like applaudable to me. Like, how you do the switcheroo like that?
But she had to be a very hard sleeper.
Bro, that's crazy.
My word. All right. So in verse 23, the king says, that one says, "This is my son who lives, and your son is dead." The other one says, "No, but your son is dead, is the dead one, and my son's the living one." So then Solomon said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought the sword before the king, and the king said, "Divide the child in 2, and give 1/2 to one, and 1/2 to the other one." Then the woman whose son is the living spoke to the king, and she yearned with compassion for her son, and she said, "O Lord, give her the child, and by no means kill him." But the other one said, "Let him neither be mine nor yours, but divide him." And for some reason, when I read that, I just had like an evil witch laugh in my head, like a little evil snicker when she said that. That might be the cartoon, honestly.
No, that's a cold woman, but this woman cold-blooded, bro. And she cold with that, bro. She don't care about that child.
Well, my thing is, but like as a child, bro, like why are you sentencing the child to death? Like girls, like yo, kill him dead.
Hey, that child is crazy. Just a baby, bro. Like what?
Definition of misery love company, bro.
That's real.
Where Dom when you need him.
That's real. Shut up, Dom.
Anyway, right? So the king said, give the first woman the living child, and by no means kill him. She is the mother. And all Israel heard of the judgment of which the king had rendered, and they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to administer justice.
Mm.
I mean, that's an interesting way to like solve that too. I don't know how to come up with that.
Yeah, my mommy do that to us when we was children, and I was embarrassed when I realized that this was a textbook play. I can't remember something I was taking. It was Najo, and probably food, and say, "Oh, I don't drink my juice," and no, Najo don't drink the juice. Now she trying to drink mine, or you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was like, "All right, we can share it. We can cut it in half. You do this," and you know what I mean? And Najo must be like, "Anyway, no, you can have it then. You know, it ain't even that important for me." And I was like, "Yeah, let's cut it in half. And Mom was like, "All right, no, this is Najo." You see what I saying? Like just to share reaction, because I was just kind of like,
he was like, anything is good for me at this point.
Anything is a win. Anything is a win. I want to say it was food, but I just can't remember what it was, bro. And then later on, when I learned that this was Solomon, I was like, bro, how you fall for this one, bro? Like this is a textbook play right now, bro.
Human nature, bro. Human nature.
Real talk.
So what's your biggest takeaway from Second Kings? Woo, that's far in the future. First Kings chapter 3.
But if we make it to Second Kings in the pace that we make it to Second Samuel, but we could be here for a little minute. But so the first thing is, number one, I don't know how significant it is to me at this point about accept, high places thing. That's definitely something I probably gonna spend about an hour or so tomorrow trying to read up on that. You know what I mean? But other than that, we have the guy who asked for wisdom, and it was granted unto the Lord. I have this thing in my mind where it's like sometimes I'm torn between the state of the world prophetically that we're in and just the promises of God.
Mm-hmm.
Will the righteous never be forsaken? You know what I mean? Or will we be like the martyrs? Stephen and all these people, or Jesus when he was on the cross, God, why hast thou forsaken me? Some things are prophetic and they have to happen. You know what I mean? Consider it pure joy when you suffer persecution, right? That's in, I think, James. I can't remember. I'm sorry, y'all. I've been off my game with this, but on one side, it's like, hold on, you never forsaken, or is the righteous suffering persecution? You know what I mean? That's where I learned a lot. But I do not believe that God is a man that he should lie. And I believe that he's the same, yes, today, and forever. And you can see the input equaling the output. Solomon's wisdom was contingent on his faithfulness to God. Same thing with God, like what are you saying about David? As long as you stay you follow my precepts, you obey my commandments, stuff like that, things gonna be good, bro. Like you don't even have to. They say this is a no-brainer. We have people like Job who do all of that, and we see that result. But that wasn't actually the result. This was a test that he went through. And so even situations like this in the Bible, when I read it, it affirms me that I can double down on God's promises. Like if I am faithful to God, he would be faithful to me, and even when I am not faithful to God, he is still faithful to me. But it is in my best interest to be faithful to God because I want to bring blessings on my life. I don't want to bring curses. I don't want to bring punishments on my life. If I do suffer hardship, I want this to be because it's a test. I want this to be for the glory of God, for people to see it and be blessed. You understand what I'm saying, etc. But I don't want it I don't want to live in a world where I feel like, oh, bad stuff could happen, regardless if you're a Christian or not. I mean, and it ain't nothing you can do about it for real. You know, I hold on to the promises that being faithful to God, it actually yields results, and it yields God actually blessing you abundantly, the way we can see with Solomon. You know,
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, I mean, for me, Second Kings is an interesting book because I feel like when you read it,
First Kings.
Boy, I tell you, I don't know why I lived in the future.
You ready to go?
Oh, this was happened when, like, you know, you traveled back for the podcast to like a story that you read like 2 months ago, really and truly.
Yeah.
But in First Kings, because I feel like when you read it now, or when I read it this time, I had to like deprogram myself to what I was just used to like hearing growing up, to actually get an appreciation of what was actually happening. You know what I'm saying? Because you have a young man who has this big burden on himself, and I kind of see myself in that. Like, you know, I mean, crap, I switched jobs this year, and you have the feeling of inadequacy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what you need to do, but now that you hear, you like, Lord, help me. You know what I'm saying? I want to perform, I want to do good, but I know I cannot do nothing without you. You know what I'm saying? And so we see Solomon new to this role, new to trying to figure out what does it mean to be king, and quite honestly, like still trying to figure out what it means to be a man. You know what I'm saying? But now I have this big burden on my plate, and yeah, it's easy. Like when we were younger, it was easy to say, yeah, why don't you get the riches? Why don't you get the honor? Why don't you get the fame? Why don't you like, yo, Lord, just deal with my enemies now, so I don't have to worry about them. You know what I'm saying? All these are sensible like things, but Solomon's saying, you know what? I need the wisdom to lead your people, and if you give me this, Lord, I can. To your point, I can figure out everything else. You know what I'm saying? Like, not even that he wanted the riches and stuff to come along immediately, because God just, in his grace and mercy and love and abundance, said, you know what? I'm going to grant you these things now just because of how pleased I was with your initial answer. But for Solomon to even say, you know what? This is what I need right now. These other things, they really and truly ain't going to do nothing to me. Like, what good is you killing my enemies if I cannot govern my people and the nation falls apart? Mm-hmm. What good is me being rich if I have so many poor people in the country who I can't, you know, help out? You know what I'm saying? Like, what good is the honor and the fame if the nation's going to ruins? You know what I'm saying? Like, is my honor and fame coming because my nation is crumbling under my feet? Because there's multiple ways to get notarized. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But like Solomon's saying, like, Lord, I need you, and without you, there is no possible way I can accomplish this task in front of me. And I think that's humble. Like, even this time of reflection I enter into, right? Like looking back and saying, Lord, everything I accomplished this year, it was because of you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I started this year, some of these things, like, you know, you want to accomplish me, like, bro, Lord, it's only through your grace and mercy, your blessings, that I even accomplish some of these things. And I think that's what Solomon's found himself in, like, Lord, I need you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need you. Like, offering these big sacrifices, like, God, I need you with me. I cannot do this without you. And I think that's just humbling, and it shows, even though he was a king, he knew that, yo, I can't do this alone. And he had the example of David, but now we know David is dead. So you really all on this officially by your lonesome now. Like, you ain't got your pillar to lean on no more. Like, God himself is your pillar, and you got to establish a relationship with God for yourself. So yeah, I think that was pretty remarkable there, and it makes sense as you read it when you're older.
Yeah, definitely is. Most of these stories do. You know, we get full insight, or way more insight, you know, when we get older and wiser. Just like Solomon.
When given the opportunity to ask God for anything, Solomon asked for wisdom. He asked for an understanding heart so that he can better judge God's people. And this pleased the Lord. So he granted Solomon his request, plus more. But Solomon didn't work alone. He had priests, officers, scribes, you name it. But we'll talk more about that on the next episode of A Breath of Fresh Air. Tonight's episode included voice acting by your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz. Remember to go ahead and research on your own in order to get a more firm understanding of tonight's episode. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. You can follow us on social media at A Breath of Fresh Air Pod on Instagram and BOFAPOD on Twitter. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next week.